Given this list of numbers, how can I sort them into ascending order using the bubble sort algorithm? Well, if I want to do it by hand, I've got a video on how to do that, but I want to be able to program this using Python. Now, as intimidating as that sounds, it really isn't that bad. If you know how to create a for loop and a while loop, you're pretty much off to the races. Now, since you are working with an objective type list, you're going to need to also know how to create a list, index a list, and swap elements within that list. Now, if you're not sure how to swap elements within a list, I've got you covered with a video for that as well. Now, we're going to have enough tools to start bubble sorting. Let's get programming. Right, I'm going to get started by creating an object of type list and assigning it to the variable seq. Now, I am populating this list with the elements that I want to get into ascending order. And for the purpose of convenience, I'm also going to create a list indicating the position or the index of each of the elements within my sequence. Now, that will allow me to index a value in my sequence. So at position 3, it returns 9. And I can see here that if I have an index of 3, that corresponds to the element 9 in my sequence. So the other thing that I'm going to need for this script is the length of my sequence. I can see that that returns 6, and I'm going to assign this to the variable n, as I'm going to be making use of this in just a moment. The first thing that my user is going to see is the original sequence, and now I think I'm actually able to start programming the swap. I'm going to work outwards here, so I'm going to start off with an if statement. And this is where we're going to compare two consecutive elements within our list. So if the value at position I is greater than the value at position I plus 1 in my list, that's going to tell me to swap those two elements. So my Boolean statement is if the value at position I in my sequence is greater than position I plus 1, if that is true, then we are going to swap. And we're going to do this by taking the value of the element at position I and temporarily storing it as the variable memory, or MEM. That will allow me to take the value at position I plus 1 and assign it to the position I in my list. And that's okay because that value originally at position I is safely stored as the variable M, or memory. Now I can take the value in memory and assign it to the position I plus 1. And that completes the swap. So we should go ahead and just print the modified list to our user. Now this is not enough for our swap to take place. I mean, it is the code for the swap, but I need to tell it what index I'm going to be comparing with. So I need to take this code block and embed it within a for loop. And this is what's going to generate those I values or index values in my list. So for I, and I is the index value within our list, for I in range, and this is going to be range 0, from range 0 up to n minus 1. That is non-inclusive n minus 1 is the upper part of the range. So we started off with n is 6 and 6 minus 1 is 5, and that will leave us with position 4 as the last value generated in our for loop. So 4 is going to be the last value of I that we have, and that makes sense because that is the largest value that we can have in our list for the comparison to take place. And it works. We have completed one cycle through our list. But that's not enough for the bubble sort algorithm. Remember, we need to continue to cycle until there are no swaps. So to do this, we're going to take this code block, which is our swapping block, and we're going to place it in a while loop where the Boolean statement is always true. Now, for each cycle within the while loop, we are going to initialize our swap variable as 0. And if this Boolean statement within our if statement is true, meaning that a swap is going to take place, we are going to increment our swap variable by a value of 1. So that just indicates within a cycle we have completed at least one swap. And this essentially allows us to break out of the while loop. Because if the value of our swap variable is 0, then we're going to break. And all that means is that we never entered this code block where we indicated that we want to complete a swap of 2 elements within our list. And that's enough for bubble sort to work. So we're going to go ahead and run this piece of code, and there it is. It has cycled through a few times here. And managed to sort our list into ascending order. Now, it would be nice to know how many cycles it took for this to take place. So let's go ahead and initialize a loop variable at 0. And for each cycle within our while loop, we are going to increment our loop variable by 1. And that should be enough for us to include a final print statement here. So we're going to print, and this is going to be an F string. So bubble sort took, and what variable did we use here? That was loop. So we are going to loop cycles to complete. So how many cycles did it take to complete? And not forgetting the F, because this is an F string, and it works. Bubble sort managed to sort our list of elements, and it took 5 cycles. My name is Mark. Thank you for watching.